This actually, my meeting notes taker. Listen, if you don't have a meeting notes taker, um, on like your Zoom calls or anything like that, where you're in like a mastermind, or if you're hosting Zoom calls or something like that, Zoom now has that feature where um, you can add like it to take notes for you in here. I have one called Read AI, and I love that thing. Like every time I have a meeting, it sends me the meeting review. And then it also will send me pretty much like the entire transcript. It will tell me like the vibe of the meeting. It will give me like action items after that. It is incredibly helpful because you can't do all the things at once. So it is technology can be really, really phenomenal. I mean, everything is already listening to everything that we're doing anyway, so might as well just let it. I'm gonna move this. I'm gonna share my screen. So just to, because we have a couple of new people here, so coffee chats. These are really just general what are words this morning? Word salad is legit. Coffee chats are just an opportunity to hop in. They're kind of like office hours for you to just hop in here, and we're gonna have themes. And so this is kind of one of the things that I wanted to share that we're gonna update. So intention is very important when it comes to business. Profitability is really a matter of intention or lack thereof. And so when we come into these coffee chats, the first chats of the month, these are going to be focused more on systems, processes, leadership, people, things of that nature. And then the second ones of the month are going to be focused on finances, pricing, money strategy, things like that. On the coffee chat that we'll have on the second half of this month, I'm going to walk you all through the Augusta rule. We're going to be making a module or a course video in Progress University for this. This is like a very simple thing that so many business owners are not utilizing in their business. And it's not like it's going to completely change the trajectory of your tax plan, but it does help you save money in taxes. And so I'm going to go over how to use that, what it really is, how to properly leverage it from a compliance perspective when it comes to the IRS, and how it saves you money in taxes. So we're going to talk about that on the second one of this week. So if you have questions that are related to that, how do you implement that? You want to make sure you see that. Otherwise, we will, like I said, we'll have a course module up for that coming up. But today, so we're going to be launching a mastermind called the Build Mastermind. And this is really for people that they have grown a business, they have a team in under them. Usually you're probably going to have at least 3 to 4 team members that are under you, and you're probably really good at sales in your business. That's not necessarily the problem. Systems are maybe not are your thing, or understanding like, are you priced for profit is maybe not your thing. Learning how to lead your team better, or how to hire the right people maybe in the first place. So really building a business. And why we're doing this is because a lot of the stuff that we see, people come in and they want us to help them with their money, and we're doing that. But the profitability is usually not the issue. It's the actions that we're taking. It's the robustness of our systems. It's the way that we lead ourselves and lead our team. It is the awareness that we have of how things are working in our business. And so we are launching that to help build up businesses. And this is for people that they have grown, but so has their overwhelm, their stress, their like feeling of out of control. And I love systems. I love building those things out. And I love being able to help people identify like what the true source of fixing this, to where we don't have problems going forward, and we avoid those things from happening in the future. And so it's like using our technology and leveraging those things. So we do this with we have clients in what we call a mastery program, and I'm actually working with them more one-on-one, and we go through their business deep, and we audit so many systems and processes. And it's really fun to be able to see how that translates to more money in their pocket at the end of the day, and in the course of 12 months, and how they're able to cut days out of the week that they have to work, and they don't have to spend so much time in the office, and they're not having to stay up late anymore to get invoices out or do stuff on the computer, because they've understood themselves how to use technology, how to use systems and things like that. So one of the things that I wanted to share with you all real quick today, and this is actually something in Progress University, we have this template, and I want to share this with you all because In building out the systems of your business, and when you're really getting clear on what your client results journey is, and that is something that we are building out a course in Progress University for this. We already have a module up for that to help you get started on building out that journey for yourself. And what that is understanding like what is the journey that your clients and customers go through to get that end result with you, and being able to focus on that one journey, and that is all you focus on, and you don't let all these other little distractions get in your way. And so essentially building that out for your business and for your clients so that you're not into you're able to separate yourself into an industry of one. Because one of the biggest things that we get questions about is I don't know if my prices are right in my business. And there's an objective part of that, and then there is a subjective part of pricing in your business. And so there is obviously you need to understand the cost that it takes to deliver the transformation or the result that you're getting your clients. It's important to understand like what are your labor costs, is there technology, are there tools, are there materials, are there consumables that go into being able to deliver that transformation. And of course there is, but having clarity on what those look like is absolutely important. And that's what I would call the objective side of that. But when you're building out that client results journey and you understand, so the way that we have that framework built out is that there are 5 stages that a customer or client goes through, that as they engage with your company all the way through that journey of getting that end result with you. And whether it is 1 week or 12 months or 3 months, whatever that looks like, they're going through a journey. And you may not realize it, but there are multiple steps in that process. And we really want to help you identify and refine what those look like so that you can better identify what those costs are, the timeline that it takes, and then looking for opportunities that you can set yourself apart so that you can really give these people a great experience, because we know how important that is. And then also what that allows you to do is that on the subjective side of pricing in your business, being able to price yourself above the industry standard, because competition for the industry standard, you're never going to win at that game. Like competition is a losing game, and there is relevance to understanding what your competition is in business. But we understand that as a baseline where, if we're looking at the performance of our business and where we're at and where we want to go, we want to understand like where are we in terms of like what the industry standard is. And where that can be helpful is, for instance, if you have a construction company and the industry standard in your state and in the type of construction that you do is that you have 15% net operating profit as an industry standard, and your company is doing 10%. Well, you know that by the industry standard in your region and based on the similarity of the industry, you're 5% behind. So you already know without doing a whole lot of overhaul that you can be doing better already based on that industry standard. But we want to be able to exceed that industry standard. We want that higher profitability. And the way you're able to obtain that is being very clear on the solutions that you provide for people, the transformation that you provide for people, and then having that certainty on what you create and the value that you deliver, that you're able to price yourself above the rest. And one of my favorite things that I have heard, and I don't even remember who said this. I'm sure there's like somebody that is coined on Google with this or something. But they said that price is only a problem in the absence of value. And so when you are so clear on the transformation and the results that you get your people, you attract the right people in the first place. And they're not really concerned with what they're going to pay you, because they know they're going to get value that is going to exceed the price they pay. And that price is still going to give you so much margin in your business, so that ultimately, when you're managing your money responsibly, you're able to reinvest some of that to continue to grow and build out your business. And you're able to use that money to build your life, because we're not going to lie to ourselves and say that we're here to build businesses so that we can work 70 hours a week, because there's nothing else that we would rather do. That's not true. We want the slow mornings. We want to be able to have 3-day work weeks consistently. Like we have clients that do all these things. Being able to leave your business and it run without you while you travel the world for a month, like people do this all the time, and it's a result of the systems and the processes that they have in place. And so one of the things that I do want to encourage, because I can sit on here and ramble all day long. If you all have comments on here, I know Val is on here. If she sees those, then you might like send me a chat or something, because I don't think I can see them when I'm sharing my screen. But Val, can you verify that if somebody can verify that you can see my screen where this SOP template on here?
Yeah, I can
make
see the SOP template.
Okay. Okay, so this is such a critical part, and everybody knows like business owners are not ignorant to the fact that they need processes in their business. A lot of times they don't know where to begin. And so we have this, you can access this in Progress University. This very template is in there. And I want to go through and explain some of the critical elements about this, because I want you to think about this when it comes to your business and it comes to each of those phases of marketing your business, in the actual sales process of your business, when you are onboarding a new client, when you are fulfilling or providing a treatment, or you are providing the service of the client, thinking about each of these steps, because you're going to have an overall business plan, an overall framework for the goals that you want to achieve in the business. And then the processes are going to be the more detailed means of how you're going to get there. And so we created this template because I see a lot of processes that people have built out. One of the things that I love to do is go in and audit businesses. And, one of the first things I'll do is go and see, do you even have your processes documented? And in a lot of cases, they don't. And then also in several cases, people do have processes documented. It depends on who it is and if they're even organized well, but their processes are almost always missing some core components that make them difficult to follow. They are not followed consistently, or nobody really understands why they're doing it in the first place. And so that's the reason that you're getting inconsistent results, or people aren't even using them. And so we created this template, and I'm a huge fan of this. We use this with our own team, and we have processes for everything, and it really does help. And as much as we are always focused on improvement, we have really great systems, and they can still be better. And so we get feedback from our team, from our clients, to refine these. And this is really one of the things where we have landed on this, and we know that this is solid. So I want to go through building out a process that allows you, because the thing is that you want anybody to be able to come into your company, into your team, and be able to sit in this role and go through this process and be able to do it, and then have somebody else do the same thing and get the same end result. And that's why we have put these critical pieces on there, so that you can identify this. And maybe if you're not sure where to start in your business, look at the core processes of your business. If you have a med spa, maybe a core process is going to be, how do you handle a consultation? How do you manage that relationship? Like when you're doing the checkout process, like how does that need to be performed? When you are doing, if you're doing like social media, for instance, like what does this process look like? Like you can use this for all of these components. And so, if we look at like a construction company, maybe that has project management, what does that process look like for making sure you collect the deposit from the client before you begin to order materials, and making sure that that is completed correctly? Because all of these things, at the end of the day, if we don't have clarity on these processes, or the things like I mentioned before, these are going to be cash flow leaks. That's what it translates to in your business. This is going to be things that are causing you to have that profit where you're not even meeting the industry standard. It's going to be little things like this. And so to start with, like looking at a process, the first thing that we want to understand is like why we're doing it. One of the things that I am so passionate about, and it's actually the reason that I left the corporate world, and I'm sure a lot of business owners have experience with this, but I hated working somewhere where I didn't see what I did mattered at the end of the day, because who wants to wake up and go to a job where they don't see that they're actually making a difference? Like everybody wants to make an impact on somebody. And I think that anybody that is in the Progress ecosystem is definitely those kind of people. And so you know what I'm talking about. And so we want our team members to have that same assurance that they're not just doing this to do it, that there is a purpose behind it. And so we will clarify that on here. And so I put some examples on here. For instance, like the purpose could be to provide the best customer service or to ensure that we always have products available. Counting inventory is the first line of defense against running out of product. And so like if we're looking at our inventory management process and we are going through and we're counting that inventory at the end of the month, maybe one of the things that is part of this process is ensuring that we have our minimum reorder quantities established. And the reason for that is that it's going to help us make sure we always have product available to fulfill our clients' desires. And so we put that on here, and that makes this so much more easier to adhere to than if it's just like you need to go through this process. Like, and then it's so much easier to train on that too when people understand what the end result is. And so much of the things in the systems that we build out, one of the first things we always address is like, think about the end in mind. And so we're starting with that here. And that's what understanding the purpose is. The next part of this is understanding clearly the tools that are needed. And when I say tools, this is going to be technology. This may actually be some physical tool. What are those things? Are you going to need access to some particular software program? Are you going to need access to a website? Do you need access to a template or a resource such as like an inventory sheet? So if we'll just use a month-end inventory count because this is relevant for so many of the businesses that we work with, construction, property management. If they purchase products to fulfill maintenance on properties, like they're keeping inventory as well. Med spas, especially, this is always one of the first things that we address when we are working with people because it's such a cash flow killer if you don't have clarity on this process or your inventory. And so understanding what your tools are needed on here so that people know where this is at, especially if they have tools where there's like templates and things of that nature that they're going to be accessing on a computer, have the links to those tools and templates on here as well. So they can just click on that and it just makes this process of following the process more efficient. And then the other thing as part of clarifying your processes, I just love these things because this is truly like one of the most basic, simple tools you can use to get yourself out of your business and to be able to identify those areas where you need to delegate something or ditch it. The roles involved being very clear. And one of the things that I want to make sure I emphasize here is do not, when you are building out processes, do not put the actual name of the person, put the name of their role. Because as your business is building and you're growing your business, you're going to have people that rotate out of that role. They're going to grow, they're going to elevate into a different role or a different level, or maybe you have a great person on your team, but they're in the wrong seat. They're not going to be in that role, but that role is still going to be involved in that process no matter who is in it. But if you put that person's name in there and then a year from now, maybe you had to fire Joe Schmo because they just were not getting the idea, then you have this SOP built around this person and not the role. And so there's a lack of clarity that is missing there. And so put the roles in there and be critical on that. What this may force you to do if you have not done it yet is building out your accountability chart. Now, I know that a lot of business owners that are starting out, maybe you have like, maybe it's just you and one other person, or maybe just a handful of other team members. I still would encourage you to go, even if it's just you, go like goggle an organization chart or an accountability chart and understand like all the roles that you're playing in your business, because this is one of the areas where people lack a lot of clarity that they are doing multiple roles. And so when they go to hire, they don't know where to begin. And so going ahead and establishing this accountability chart or this org chart, whatever you want to call it, is going to help bring clarity to this as well. So the next thing on here that you're going to see is a trigger. And so when you're going through processes, it's like, what is going to be the thing that initiates this process? Is it that one process ends or another begins? If we're looking at managing our inventory and making sure it's not growing legs and walking off, and we're counting it consistently and we're managing it and we're making sure we know what we have, then maybe what's going to initiate that inventory process is that we always do this on the last day of every month. So we're going to have a calendar reminder for that. Or maybe if it's like a checkout process, maybe it's once the client has paid, this next process begins. So we want to be able to have clarity over when does this begin as well. And this, like, again, this is just a training material for you to share with your team and as you grow, and just to have clarity on that. Because like I said, one of the things that I saw is that in building out processes, you know, people understood a lot of times how to do their jobs, but they didn't always know when to do it. Again, that goes back to like, how does this translate to the financial performance of your company and the profitability of it at the end of the day? Well, if you have team members that are being less effective than we know they could be, then we're spending more money on labor than we actually have to, or we're spending the same amount of money in labor, but we're getting less output. When we could implement things like this to just bring more clarity, like what starts this process. And so instead of there being lag time in between when one thing ends and the other begins, it's just a consistent flow. And you're able to have people that just get stuff done with more ease. And then the next thing on here is obviously at some point you're going to have what are the steps that it takes to complete this process. If you need to put screenshots in here, I recommend this. Something else to encourage you to do is when you get this document built out and like I said, I would start with core processes. When you get this built out, we love Loom, phenomenal training tool. You could simply pull this process up and just read through this process, each of these critical elements, so that you have a video and a copy that people can read. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people are visual or auditory learners. They're not necessarily people that learn really well by reading. I am not a person that learns very well by reading. I'm a person that learns better when I hear people speaking, when they change their tone, their dialect, things of that nature, and it sticks in my brain a lot easier. And especially if it's something that has emotion to it, I'm going to remember that a lot better than if I'm reading it. This is why I like listening to Audible. Usually the same when as I'm reading a book or just in place of reading a book, because I'm going to remember the content a lot better, but that's how I learn. I know a lot of people that they don't want to hear anything, like they can't manage it as well that way. So they would rather just read the process and be able to check off the steps as they go. And so you're going to be able to train people more effectively when you give those options. And it's going to help you if you're the business owner that's recording this, or maybe you have somebody else do this. This is just going to help you to be able to refine the process, because a lot of times what I'll see on here is that when you go to draft out a process and you start talking through the steps or these different components, you're going to realize you left something out. And so it's just going to give you an opportunity to refine those processes. And then one of the things on here that is like so eye-opening is, what is the definition of done of this process? Because the last thing we want is a cliffhanger and there's no conclusion. And so being able to clearly say, like, this is confirmed the successful completion of this process, so that people know that they did their job right. We don't want our team members showing up with a lack of clarity or uncertainty about anything. And they don't even realize a lot of times that they're uncertain. They just are used to operating that way. But giving people a clarity over, okay, this is the definition of done. And if they're not able to achieve that when they get finished with this, they need to go back through that first. And so if we look at, the definition of done of an inventory count, we can go through that list and confidently say, I looked at everything on here and checked off and entered a value for that, whether you're using a manual spreadsheet or software, whatever the case may be. So clearly articulating what that definition of done, and this just sets people up for success. And again, one of the things I really want to emphasize is that, we have businesses that we're passionate about, and doesn't mean that we don't want to work in them. But if you started the business, you're more likely a visionary person anyways, and you're probably really good at getting stuff done when you have to, but you need to be the person that can help achieve the goals of the company. And you need to be out there, like, making sure that you're getting seen and getting sales and having systems for that. You're not going to be the person doing these processes all the time. And so we really want to empower our team to be able to look at this and understand, what does it take to get this done? And then also taking that mindset into everything else that they do, and being able to say with clarity, hey, we know that we got this taken care of because we knew what it meant and what it looked like for that to be considered completed. And then the last thing that I have on here is the time frame to complete. Don't put the time frame to complete as if you did it, because we all know, like, we built our businesses, we had the skill, like, we know what it takes in most cases. And so be more reasonable here. It's probably not going to happen as fast as if you did it yourself, but we also want to have some aggressiveness to it and encourage people to get it done in that time frame. So be realistic. I like to say aggressively realistic right here in the time frame that it should take to complete that process. And then that way that just kind of gives you an idea of that workload. And then that should give that person an idea too, because even with these other parameters in here, if we think this should take 1 hour or 1 day, that's going to completely change the mental state that somebody proceeds through this process. And so if we look at a few examples of core processes and where you might start with this, when we look at like the client results journey, there's 5, like I said, there's 5 core phases as part of that. And so you're going to have, if you look at any business, they're going to have these functions. They're going to have marketing, and then they're going to have sales, which are not the same thing. A lot of times they are merged together, but if we get really critical about mastering our craft, marketing and sales are separate departments. And so you have core processes within marketing that may be the way that you manage your content and get that pushed out and published. And then when it comes to sales, you may have a critical process for if you are doing estimating or if you are doing consultations, like what is the art of that estimating process? What is the way that you do that consultation that's unlike anybody else? There is a aesthetic injector that I follow, and I'm Kirby probably knows her name properly, but I know that I don't. I think Kirby's even trained with her. But I think it's like Dr. Thuone or something, or Thione or something like that. I don't know how to say her name. But I know that she actually has a workshop or something where it's like the art of the consultation. And that in and of itself is like a whole mastery program solely on the consultation, like not even providing the treatment, but mastering the art of the consultation, which is just a component of the sales process. And so this is why I'm so big on understanding each component and really mastering that based on the results that you want to get your clients and customers. And then if you go to the next phase of that, like say you've made that sale, you're going to have an onboarding process. And that's an opportunity for you to really really wow these people and really be comprehensive and to assimilate them into your ecosystem or your culture. And then you're going to have the fulfillment of that. And so, I think about this in a construction company. You might have the actual installation that happens. When it comes to a medical spa or aesthetics, this may be the actual providing of the treatment, whereas the onboarding might be completing that treatment journey and what that's going to look like over the course of 12 months to really help them show up as the person that they want to be, right? And so the actual implementation of that, which is going to have different processes, and that's going to get more maybe into the technical and the art side of things for you, where it might be a laser that you're using, it might be a specific tool, it may be a piece of machinery, whatever that is, that's going to have core processes for that. And this is where in that fulfillment stage, one of the things that I want you to think about, especially as your business grows, we want to caution against offering a bunch of different things. And we want to encourage you to offer a handful of things that complement one another and that are growable and scalable, but not to necessarily prematurely expand. And an example of this is having core processes around a treatment journey that includes a combination of maybe like lasers and skincare or whatever the case may be. But then to go outside of that transformation journey, you might be offering like nutrition and wellness or hormone regulation or something. Well, once you start getting into like that wellness side of things, that really is going to take so much, that completely changes the way that you have to position yourself when it comes to your marketing. So you're going to have to change processes there. It's going to change the way that you do sales. So you're going to have new processes for that. It's going to change the way that you do onboarding and fulfillment. So you're going to have new processes for that. And so you can see where that's going. But I say that because, a lot of times we see bright, shiny objects. I'm that person. And so Val is like my anchor. that I'm like, what do you think about this? And she, if anybody, you all should do the Working Geniuses assessment. That has brought me so much clarity and peace of mind. But Val is like the person that will tell me like if this is a good idea, if it's a bad idea. She is like blunt with me and she's allowed to do that. And it's also like, well, what if we did it this way instead of this way? And so brings that clarity. But I'm going to be that person for you to help you understand that you can have an exceptionally profitable business that you can take into not just 1 million, but multiple millions and never offer anything else because you are refining and mastering the way that you do you build out your results. And as you understand that, you're going to start to see where you have so many areas where you need to articulate your processes and refine them. Because as soon as you expand your business, it does not mean more money to your bottom line. In a lot of cases, and I see so many instances of this, it actually ends up costing you more money because now you're not focused on one proprietary result. You're focused on doing two different things that may be similar, but it does require different expertise. And so because of that time translates into lack of profitability. And then you have to develop processes, you have to purchase new assets, you have to purchase new tools and technology to manage this expansion. And so you want those things to be very intentionally planned before you do them and understanding what is this going to look like financially and what does it need to look like financially before we make that decision. And all of this solely off of having clarity over what are your core processes and how will that look like and how will that things like that change when you go to purchase another machine or you go to, say, yeah, I can do that, but it doesn't mean that you should for people. And so just something to think about in that regard. But yeah, I could talk about processes all day. If anybody has any questions over like specific processes or maybe one of the things where it's helpful to identify when you need to go back and revisit processes and drilling those down in your business is taking the time to stop and think is if you're having a problem in your business, maybe you cannot consistently achieve the profitability that you want in your business. And it could be around money management, but a lot of times your profit is going to be a result of your actions, and your actions are a result of the people that you have, the products that you have, the processes that you have, the clarity you have over what you're doing. But what you can think about is where do I have a breakage, blockage, or bottleneck? Now, most of the time, the business owner is the bottleneck. But you may have other areas where you're having maybe sales. This is something I see a lot of time in companies where they'll have a sales team and then they'll have a separate fulfillment or operations team. Is that maybe sales is really good at getting the sale and landing that, but operations is inefficient. And so they're getting backed up. So they can't get all of these people that they are, closing these contracts with. They can't get them fulfilled. And so the operations becomes the bottleneck, for instance. And then there might be places where you have like a breakage or a blockage or just something isn't able to work whatsoever. And it's like, I'm doing this and it's just going nowhere. And so being able to drill down, go back to your process and see, do I even have one for it? Because in a lot of cases, you probably don't even have an established process for it. But if you look at and you have like a picture of your ecosystem that you've created, and you're looking at everything from sales, from marketing, sales, onboarding, fulfillment, all the way to that iteration phase where you have processes around training, processes around getting feedback from your clients and customers on their experience. If you have that clarity over what that should look like from start to finish, and then you have processes for each of those, you're going to get to a point in your business, and this happens to every single business, you're always going to get to like a break point where something breaks. And at that point, that's when you start to go back and understand, okay, let's look at this on a macro level. And then this is a process problem? What is it? If it's like a people problem, that's something that we'll talk about at another time. But again, I would encourage you to, anybody that helps you deliver to your clients and customers on your team, or if it's even a contractor, I would have them take that Working Geniuses assessment. I really encourage you to read that book too. It provides a lot of useful context, but I feel like it was written directly for me, so I'm really passionate about that. But it was very eye-opening for me. And like I said, we have completely restructured our team based off of those assessments already and just more effective. So it was really helpful. But I don't know, Val, if you have anything to add to any of that, but I feel like that really covers it. So if anybody wants this tool, then you can reach out to us in Telegram and we'll send you the link on exactly where to get that and download it. And then I think I'm going to make a video on this to cover that in there just so that you can refer back to that. That would be a really good training if you have team members that you want to build these out for you. You can have them watch that training. And then Val is going to be making a training on how to organize these and save these, because that's another area for business owners that's like, I hear about this all the time, that they have stuff everywhere. There's no consistent file organization. And that is such an area of like, just poor, it just lends to poor efficiency and effectiveness in your business. And like I said, anytime you have those things going on where it's like, things could be better, it's going to translate to your profits not being what they could be as a result of that. So yeah. Val, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that was a good overview.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so take that and use that in your business, use that tool. Like I said, core processes, it's like, where do you even start to document these? I would look at the area where I would start to isolate. So, I actually made a post about this on social media today. You don't fix your problems by focusing on the problems. You fix your problems by focusing on what were the behaviors or the actions that came before that, because that caused the problem. And so, if we look at, I had a story from this. This is very real life. I'm going to tell myself here, but about 2 months ago, month and a half, 2 months ago, I was coming back from Georgia. I was driving a rental car and I wasn't paying attention. I don't think I was on my phone. I might have been on my phone, but I don't think I was. And I was driving and I was going way too close behind the semi truck. And I knew I was. Like, if anybody doesn't know, if you're driving behind a semi truck, if you cannot see their mirrors, you are too close. And my dad was a truck driver for years. Like, I know this, but here we are. So I was driving behind this semi truck. I was way too close, and this semi truck swerves. And I was far enough behind. I was like, okay, I see him swerving. I knew there was something in the road, but because I was so close to this truck, I could not move. I couldn't see what was in the road fast enough to get out of the way of it. And what it was it was like some big hook. I don't know if anybody's ever seen like big loads on the road. These semi trucks are carrying these loads, and they'll have these straps over this material or whatever it is they're hauling. Well, it looked like one of those straps had come off, and they have these really, really gigantic metal hooks because it's got to hook into the frame of this semi truck trailer. It has this big hook, and so I drove right over that, and I didn't even. It's like, sometimes if you ever get in a wreck or you run over something and like your heart will just race and you feel like it's going to pound out of your chest. That didn't even happen because I knew what I did, and I immediately just started to shift over. I switched the little thing on the steering wheel so that I could see the tire pressure, and it was just like dropping just so fast. And so I immediately went over to the shoulder because I knew it was going to go flat, and it did. And so I just sat there for a minute, and I was aggravated with myself, but I was like, okay, I can fix this. And I was like, I immediately remember thinking, if I would have not been following that truck so close, I would have been able to avoid this whole situation. I didn't get in bed till late that night, which affected my weekend and being able to get things done. It was just like a disaster. And so I had that clarity, and then the car didn't have a spare tire in it, which is a brand new rental car. Makes no sense. So I ended up having to pay a $453 tow bill in addition to paying for the repair of the tire, which they're supposed to be reimbursing me for because that would have never happened if I had a spare. But I essentially had to pay like $1,000 for all this stuff for this rental car because I was being inattentive and I was following this truck way too close. Now, what a lot of people will do in those circumstances, and I say this because this is how people approach things in their business. They see something happen, they see a problem, And instead of fixing it, they just look at the problem and they're just like, okay, well, let's try not to have that happen anymore. But they don't take like intentional steps to back up and see like what caused this in the first place. So what caused that problem in the first place was me not paying attention and following too close behind that semi truck. And I have been very critical about my driving ever since then. I've never had a flat tire on the interstate, y'all, so it really bothered me. And so when that happened, it's like when I get on the highway now, not just behind semi trucks, but behind every car, it's like the one car length for every 10 miles you're going. Like I'm following that now. And so I'm driving 3 hours to Western Kentucky tonight, and I can guarantee you that I will be much more attentive so that I don't have any issues, and especially because I'm driving my own vehicle. But I say all that because what I had to actually change so that that problem did not happen again was the way I drove and the process and the behavior behind that. And so my behavior has changed as a result of that. And that's what we want processes to do. We want it to change behaviors. We want it to prevent problems from happening so that we can really experience the best of what we have to offer, and give that to our clients and customers and avoid having to spend time on correcting problems in the first place. But you will hit break points in your business where what worked then will not get you to where you want to go next. And so you're going to have to readdress those things and have clarity over what that looks like. So, hopefully that makes sense to you all. It did in my brain. But if anybody doesn't have any questions or anything like that, like I said, let us know if you want that template. Happy to share that with you all. I know Roman is on here and he may not have this documented, but one of the things that I love about processes that we've implemented in his business is that just implementing technology and using that in his business, like it's so fun to talk to him about it. And we're actually going to be doing something tomorrow that's going to give him more time back into his life. Because of the way that we are going to do invoicing for the projects that he does. But it's really fun because when you understand how things should work and you put the combination of your skills and time devoted to that to understand that process and put it together, it seriously does give you your time back. And that's what we want. We want a business that does things for people, that gets them what they want, but we don't always have to be attached to that outcome to ensure that it happens that way consistently. And so I just love, that's why I love business. You know, I did this when I was working at the bank, and like we had a technology we were underutilizing, and it literally saved us 2 weeks every year from then on that we did not have to spend on taxes. And that was like one of my claims to fame before I left that bank. So it is really fun to be able to dig in here and do this stuff. If this is not something you're passionate about, that is why we're here. We are here to help you and understand how your numbers are affected with things like this. So if nobody has any questions or raising hands or anything, then I'm going to hop off of here. This will be recorded for you all, and Val will make sure that you all have access to that. And then as always, if you don't have Telegram, then you can get that, and then you can reach out to us on there. We are happy to have that conversation about anything pertaining to this. So otherwise, you all have a great day, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.